How is anime going to change in the next 10 years? I'm your brother from another mother, Evil Aniki, and today that is what we're talking about. I want to go over just stylistically how it's going to change, how it's going to change with production, how it's going to change, how it's going to affect the anime convention scene and anime stores, how it's going to change the anime fan, and how what I potentially see with the future of anime in general. So, if you guys didn't know, anime is really popular, right? Anime is probably more popular than it's ever been before, especially here in North America. And I feel like anime is just growing rapidly uh, at a pace that's just unheard of, with any other medium. Like anime has just completely dominated, especially here in North America, to the point where a lot of like American shows are just sort of are starting to mimic anime to just try and get some of the people back. And I feel like there's specific reasons why anime is so popular. Number one, I think anime does a better job at relating to people who are in their, teenage years or 20s. A lot of cartoons tend to either be like, hey, this is for people who are 13 and younger, or it's rated R, and there's not really an in between. Anime does this really good thing of where it's really good at mixing, they'll touch on adult topics, but it'll still be for a teenage audience. But they also do a thing where it's like they make a lot of shows that are great for older people, or people who are really into niche categories, and you don't really see that in the American animation scene. It's like, when was the last time, like, you don't really see like American cartoons. Like, let me just name a few. We got Adventure Time, fantasy, comedy, right? That's basically what it is. Like post-apocalyptic fantasy comedy. And then you got regular show, kind of like a. It started off as kind of a psychedelic, but it's kind of more like an '80s throwback comedy. And I heard they're reworking that one, and it's going to be an R, not R, but like it's going to be an adult show. Then you have like Uncle Grandpa, which is just gross out humor comedy. Then you have what, like Kids Next Door, kids. I wouldn't say like fantasy, but kind of like, I don't even know what you'd call that, like kid punk fantasy. I don't know. And then what's popular nowadays? Like maybe like a Steven Universe. I don't even know what's on TV anymore. Cartoon Network doesn't even exist anymore. So I don't know. Like Batman. Like a lot of American shows are just regurgitated like Teen Titans, Batman, and it's just the same thing for like the last 100 years. They're just, here's all of the Marvel characters for the last 100 years. You want this character? We're gonna make a new show dedicated to this character who had 5 issues back in 1935 named the green salmon, or fucking, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. And I think that's why anime does such a better job, because they really like a lot of anime. Like when it comes out, they usually go for like a niche category, or they go for a niche time period, or they really like lock into a time period. Like a lot of times, this is something that you saw a lot in like early 2000s anime, where it was anime of the time. Like the year that it was made was the year that it's meant to come out. And I feel like that's still relatively true for a lot of anime. They sort of make it really close to when it's meant to come out. But there's some things I wanted to talk about with this in general. So first off, anime is definitely more popular than it's ever been. I remember when I was, in high school, anime was nowhere near. Anime was popular. Don't get me wrong. Dragon Ball Z was popular, but it wasn't like, I'll be honest. I'll be honest, the girls weren't so into Dragon Ball Z. They might have watched a few shows every now and then, but I don't, like, the majority of them weren't into it. And it's changed a lot. It's changed so much. I feel like nowadays, if you're not watching, anime or into animation and stuff, you're kind of on the outside looking in, and it's like kind of like a reverse position. I don't know. But the main thing I want to talk about, well, not main thing, but the first thing I want to talk about is the market size. This is kind of like an estimated profitability projection, and this is from Grandview Research. This is the first thing that came up when I was looking it up on Google, and they have a bunch of numbers here. Asian Pacific dominated the anime market with the largest revenue share of 27% in 2024. That makes a lot of sense. Anime is from Asia. Asia probably has a lot more anime fans. The China anime market is experiencing a rapid expansion fueled by rising disposable incomes. Makes a lot of sense. China, there's a lot of people in China. There's a lot of people in India, so I imagine India is probably going to be next. I heard Bollywood makes a lot of money. By type, the merchandising segment led the market with the largest revenue share of 31.6% in 2024. That's a lot. So, marketing, merchandise makes a lot of money. Definitely, I mean, you see that a lot with like American cartoons, where it's like, oh, you need to make sure that your Smurfs show has Smurf toys and all that jazz. But yeah, it makes sense. Based on genre, the action and adventure segment led the market with the largest revenue share of 34.3% in 2024. Makes sense. You know, and this is one thing I think that's interesting is that they call it the action and adventure segment, and that is really like not a gender specific terminology for that. If you were to like reference this to an American production, they would have probably called it like boys action or girls action. The the American like like American studio American producers or American networks like to really categorize things into like boys action and girls. Like I used to work for a kids channel, so I kind of know. You know, they kind of separated that. Oh, so when I used to work in like children's for this TV channel, uh, the boys stuff, you know, we would put on like Gumby and Hero 108 and maybe some Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and all sorts of shows like that. The girls, they would get, you know, like Barbie and like a bunch of like, you know, horse shows or Sabrina the Teenage Witch. There's a lot of these shows that like American shows that get made that no one's ever heard of because it's just made for money, and it's a weird thing. But yeah, the girl shows also tend to have like in American shows, they tend to be a little bit more uh at least the newer ones, they tend to have a lot more. I should say newer ones. They have a lot more maturity to them, like with the content. Uh, they can deal with a lot more mature topics, whereas the boys, it's just like you need dumb, fun stuff. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think this shows that action adventure does well in anything, and I think action adventure you can sort of see like a lot of like American shows fall into the action adventure. Like a Sabrina the Teenage Witch could be like an action adventure, but at the end of the day, they're still going to be talking about like some type of school thing, or you know, it's just not the same. Whereas action adventure in anime is like My Hero Academia or Free Ren or you know, like shows where it doesn't, you know, like it's not like I don't know, it's a different thing. But let's keep going on. Market size and forecast 2024 market size is $34 million and projected to make by 2030 it's projected to be 60 million. So they're projecting it's almost going to double by in 6 years. Asian Pacific largest market in 2024, and they're assuming North America is the fastest growing market. So we'll see how that goes. And looking here, they have this chart by region, so you can see here MEA. What is MEA? Middle East, I think. And then you got Latin America, Asian Pacific, Europe, and North America. And you can see here, North America is growing rapidly, and I think North America probably has the most space to grow at the moment. But they also consider Asia, like so Asia Pacific. They probably consider India as part of that. So yeah, this big middle chunk that is Asia. North America is this bottom purple chunk, and as you can see, it's getting bigger. They're also expecting Europe to grow, and they're expecting Latin America to grow. I would imagine Latin America. I think Latin America could grow a lot. I also think South America could grow a lot as well. Um, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so they're expecting it to double in 5 years. So what in 2035? You know, I'd expect it to be I don't know. Maybe around. Let's be general. Like maybe I'm gonna be conservative and say 75 million. Right? That's a conservative guess. Because this is basically saying it's going up like 5 million a year almost, something like that. I'm not gonna do the math in my head. Here's a breakdown of just a pie chart of which category does well. You got action, adventure, sci-fi, romance, sports, and others. I think sports man, since we're getting the Olympics in 2028, I think sports is going to grow. I think sports shows in general, sports are really big in anime, and historically there's a lot of sports anime, and I think there's a lot of room to grow for North America and sports. So I think we will see a huge growth with sports and anime doing time. You already see a lot of it, but I feel like it's gonna get like way bigger, uh, just because it's gonna be used to promote products. It's gonna be used to promote, you know, teams and all sorts of things. And I think that's really where it's gonna grow. Drama and romance pretty small, but sci-fi and action adventure. Sci-fi and action has always been pretty big, But I feel like as we get closer and closer with more advanced technology, with AI and all like automation and all that stuff, I feel like this could actually shrink, and maybe fantasy will outtake sci-fi. We don't really see a split here. I'm curious to see the split between sci-fi and fantasy. And North America is the largest growing market. I'm not shocked there. North America has a lot of people, and we are heavy consumers here in North America. So Mexico, uh, America, and Canada, heavy consumption here. We are addicted. Like we love getting addicted to things and watching shows. And I feel like one of the main reasons that anime is also super popular is because the exchange rate. So like it's like $1 per like 150 yen. So when Netflix makes a show, they're saving so much money by just getting anime instead because they can. It's just so much cheaper. Yeah, and then they're talking about other stuff here. But yeah, I think anime is definitely going to keep growing. I think anime is going to, the market is going to get bigger. Everyone's going to know about anime. But I think with that, we're going to start seeing like a fall off of anime as well. So I think Comic is a good example of this. So Comic is the largest anime convention in Japan. And yeah, comic market, uh, or comic, komai. I don't know why they call it that. But this is at Tokyo Big Sight. This is like the like whenever you see an anime convention in anime, it's usually at Tokyo Big Sight, and it's usually referencing Comic Cat. But in 2019, they reached 730,000 attendees. Now, Crunchyroll just announced their turnstile attendees was like around like 410,000 people, but it's probably closer to actually like 160, 180,000 people attendees. So Japan, a lot more people attended in 2019 for Comic Cat. And if you see here, like, look, uh, actually, let me get the Anime Expo wiki up as well, so we can compare. Anime Expo adds like all these guests on the side. I don't know. I guess it's important to say like which guests you're having, but it's just kind of weird. So let's see here. Anime Expo started in 1992, and they started off with less than 2,000 people. In 1992, uh, Comic Cat was pulling Anime Expo numbers in 2022. That is insane. That's insane. Oh my god, that's literally like 30 years ago. Japan was pulling like man, Japan is like 30 years ahead of like Los Angeles. Tokyo is like 30 years ahead of Los Angeles in terms of like anime popularity. That's wild. That is so wild. And this is not turnstile. This is like actual attendance. So that's crazy. So let's see. If in 1992 we're at this, this is kind of where we're at, on just rough like single attendee. I'm not counting the 400,000 people or 400,000 turnstile attendance as like actual people. It's when they say that like 410,000 turnstile, it's like what? Okay, one person bought a Saturday badge and a Sunday badge. Do you count them as two different people or are they one person? That doesn't make sense, right? But like I'll just say that this is where we were at for Anime Expo this year, right? In 1992. So let's see what 10 years from this looks like. 10 years, they were up double. Okay, so by 2035 here in Los Angeles, we should expect Anime Expo to be at 800,000. That doesn't even seem like a real number. 800, nearly a million attendees for Anime Expo. What is the large? I can't even imagine that being a thing. What is the largest convention in the world? The largest convention in the world. What is the world's largest convention? SES. CES. What is it? SES. CES. CES. CES attendance. That's not the largest. Stop lying to me, Google. By attendance. What even is this? Well, that is not. I don't even know what that's not a convention. It's listing a bunch of stuff. It's not conventions. Okay. I'm looking it up and it just keeps saying Comic Con, but I don't think that's true. Uh, okay, well, completely off topic here. Is this going to load? Please load. Uh, there's a Wikipedia article on Wiki for about the most attended furry conventions. What? Why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? What I don't. It's not what I'm looking up. Uh, yeah. Well, I assume it's Comic Con and I was trying to see if there's something bigger than like an anime convention, but I can't. I assume there's like is Gamescon in Germany? Attendance? I've heard this one's big, so let's see how big. Yeah, Gamescom had 335,000 visitors in 2024, and that's in Germany. So that's a lot. I don't know if that's the largest, but that's a lot. That's like a quarter of a million people, right? Anime Expo is claiming that they're like half a million people, but its turnstile doesn't count. They're probably closer to like a quarter of a million as well. Smaller than this though, because this is not turnstile. But like, okay, so if we're assuming that they're like Anime Expo is going to be what like well, I assume 40,000, 400,000 people. I don't even know if downtown Los Angeles could handle that. They'd have to shut down like multiple blocks to be able to do that, uh, or extend it to be longer. Like, and or they have to do the thing where like Japan does, where if you look at this. Comic they do like a summer and like a winter show. Well, I mean these are both kind of these like fall and I guess August is summer and then I guess December is kind of wintry. I don't know. It's kind of not. It's kind of more like fall. I don't know. It's what it is. But like, okay, so that's 10 years. What about 20 years? If we go to 12, so then this is 550,000 people. Okay, I'm not gonna do that math, but we can see. Okay, so we can see here that the audience keeps growing, right? And this is where I'm saying what I was gonna say with. Eventually, I think there's gonna actually be a plateau, which we can actually see here. So when you look at like Comic Cat, right? You can see that it grows. So first off, it starts off, it's like maybe 700, 500, 500. Then it breaks 1,000, 2,000 for a while, 3,000, 4,000 for a couple years. So it looks like it grows by like a specific percent every year. And then you get to 100,000, 120,000, and then it doubles, right? It just instantly doubles once it hits like 120,000 and it goes to 230,000, 250,000. They also changed locations, but then that doesn't matter because they went back to location. So I don't know what that has to do with anything. But then they sort of hovered around the 200,000 mark for a long time until almost for like 8 years. They were kind of around that. Well, I'm gonna say I don't know. I'm gonna say like yeah. So they were here in 1990. They were at 200,000, and then in 1996. So like 6 years it took them to break the 300,000. And then they briefly went over the 400,000, then back down to 300,000, then back up to 400,000. Then for some reason this one only had 1,500. It was probably some small one-off event. And then then they just sort of grew up into the 400,000 range, and they sort of stuck there for a long time. Then they hit about 500,000 in 2004, and then they sort of plateaued in the 500,000 range for a long time. Let's see, 500,000 all the way until 2019, when they basically broke 700,000, which is absolutely wild. And then since coming back from the pandemic, they've been 100,000, 170,000. They've been growing. Like, I mean, the thing with 2021 is a lot of people were still not wanting to go out, and I think Japan was still feeling it. The restrictions pretty heavily. Same thing with 2022, but you can see people are starting to come out again, and then by 2024, it's pretty much back to where it was in the early 90s basically. I'm sure it'll pop back up, but this is what I mean is like anime hit like a plateau of like anime conventions in Japan. They hit this plateau of like 500,000 people, and they stuck there for a long time. Maybe this was a cap, maybe this was I have no idea if there's some other type of external force that was limiting this. Like maybe the Tokyo Big Set was just like, you can't have that many people here. But I mean, they clearly broke it with this 2019 year, and then they just sort of haven't really gone back up to that number. And I think the same thing will eventually hit with America. And I think what you're seeing here is people who grew up with anime. So like, look at this. You have people who were born in 1975, and they were probably into anime. They might have gone to anime. They went to conventions in high school. They went to conventions in college, and then they graduate and or not graduate, and then they like get married and have kids, and then they just don't, or they don't get married, or maybe they just want to live a quiet life and they don't want to go out to conventions, and they're just settling in with their families and whatnot. And I think that's a very logical explanation here. You also see in Japan, I think this is a bigger thing in Asia, where you see a lot of pop-ups nowadays. I don't know if there was a lot of pop-ups, going on throughout the 80s and 90s and 70s, but in like the 2000s, there is a lot of like store pop-ups throughout Asia, of like artists doing pop-ups, or like, just specific pop-ups for anime and all sorts of things. And also it's just like once you're surrounded by it, you kind of get desensitized to it, right? I think one of the big appeals for anime here in America is that a lot of people look at it as like a new thing, right? Like a lot of people go their whole lives without watching anime, and then they watch it, and then all of a sudden on Netflix they're binging like full series over and over again, and they're super into One Piece, and then they're going to anime conventions and trying to make content and filming like, hey, I'm dressed up as Luffy, and I'm gonna go ask women what their biggest, some random some bad. I don't know. I'm making I was trying to go somewhere with that. I don't know where I was going. But yeah, you get what I mean. Like you get like, yeah, like I think we're gonna plateau, and then we're gonna start seeing a fall off of people who've watched a lot of anime, but they just don't really care for it anymore. And I think that's gonna be happening a lot. Now, stylistically, okay, let's go into style now. So, I wanted to go through style as well. So, let's start in the 1970s. In the 1970s, you see a lot of like, you got like Lupin the Third, Gundam, Ashita no Joe, uh, uh, and then you also have like a lot of robots and but like stylistically, you see it's like very bright colors, but it's kind of chaotic and all over the place. And but like they're also doing a lot of like work with the animation. Like these are some interesting poses, right? Like this is like very heavily drawn and illustrated. And this is when people were starting to experiment a lot with animation, and they weren't necessarily the best at key animation. Like a lot of animation back then was kind of choppy, but it's like and it was also in like that square format, because square TVs were a long thing were a thing for a long time. Uh, and this is also when they were doing hand animation, and it's all cell production. So they're drawing on sheets of paper and then tracing that over on like plastic sheets, and then painting plastic sheets. And it's interesting to see how, I've never done that. I have a few like animation cells. Like I actually got one like right there from Bastard, the anime, from the original one. But yeah, 1970s, you see a lot of bright colors, a lot of crazy character designs. Uh, just kind of all over the place. It's just kind of like trying to figure out what's going on. And then in the 1980s, women in anime really dominated. You see a lot of like, the eyes got bigger. You got a lot of sexualization and over glorification of men as well. So you got like a lot of buff guys, like Fist of the North Star, probably really big. Like concept wise, it was like of the time, it was like the original driving force, right? But then you also get like amazing shows like Gunbuster, just fucking nailing it out of the park. And you wouldn't have, without Gunbuster, you wouldn't have Evangelion, right? And then you also get like Akira. Akira was famous for actually inventing different shades of paint so they could have brighter colors in the night scenes for their cell animation, which is absolutely insane. It was also a very expensive movie to make, and like look at this, like the women in the '80s anime, just like they have. I did not need to click that, but they just had like sex appeal. I feel like all characters had sex appeal. Like look at that, like I mean, big muscles, yeah, and then you also have Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I've actually watched this anime twice, like fully through. I tried it a third time. It's hard. It's hard. The episodes are like an hour long, and there's like 100 and some episodes, and it's like space politics. It's like if someone took the magic out of Star Wars and it was like about battleships fighting each other. That's what it is. I recommend it if you're into politics. But yeah, good looking people, big eyes, bright colors, and then we get to the 90s, and this is the 90s. You sort of start seeing like a darker side to anime. So you got like Lane, you got Berserk, you got Cowboy Bebop, uh, you got Perfect Blue is a really good example. Um, you also have you also have like crazy designs. Like the designs in the 90s were like all over the place. Like so you got like Tenchi Muyo and Dragon Ball Z, or is that's Dragon Ball? So Dragon Ball Z is not out yet. It would be Dragon Ball, right? And then actually maybe Dragon Ball Z was out. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but like yeah, just 90s anime. They took a lot of risks with like character designs. Uh, a lot of like different, and a lot of the designs you see in the 90s are sort of like really iconic because of the hair. Like the 90s hair really, I think like the 80s hair, it was pretty iconic as well, right? Like but like the 90s, like I feel like the quality of animation stepped it up so you could get more detail into that hair. And then this is right about the time when computers were starting to come out, and so then by the time you hit the 2000s you get shows like Naruto, Bleach, Black Lagoon, Nana, Full Metal Alchemist, Code Geass, uh, Hitman Reborn, Hajime no Ippo, Spirited Away, and you start seeing like the combination of like shows are starting to go a little bit digital. You're getting that like extra wide frame, like widescreen. Everyone's starting to go widescreen for widescreen was for movies, but now all the TVs are starting to go widescreen as well, and you're starting to see stylistically, uh, like a lot of designs, like the Code Geass designer, like a lot of the designs from the 90s are very iconic for people nowadays, and a lot of the character designers from that era are still making shows now, and they're still very like prominent. Like I feel like character designers really like uh, started taking like a path of their own in animation production, like because the character designer from Full Metal Alchemist just had that Moonrise show on Netflix, right? And then the Code Geass, I think they went on to go to the character designs for Gundam Seed, which I absolutely hate, probably the worst Gundam series of all time. Uh, but yeah, 90s, 90s was pretty crazy. 90s was also right around the time like that they started expanding into America. I'm talking about the 90s. 90s was when they started talking about when they started expanding to America. So these are like the beginner shows. These shows are still very Japanese, but they're coming to America. And then by the 2000s, you start getting shows that are kind of like a little bit more westernized in a way. Not so much here. Like Nana is kind of westernized. I'd say Nana is very Japanese, but it's also uh, it's very popular in the West. But Cowboy Bebop very heavily inspired by like uh, by jazz and stuff. Even Full Metal Alchemist has very heavy. Uh, I wouldn't say like American vibes, but just like not Asia vibes. If that's, I don't even know where you would like. It has very like frontier colonialism vibes. If I had to describe it in any way. Uh, in fact, I think Shaolin Samurai Champloo, I think that's what it's called, was very. I think they actually dealt with like American. I think there was like religion. I think that's like what Catholic. I think there was like a part like about religion being in that. I don't even remember. Uh, but yeah, and then you got like shows like Monster and Death Note, and then you had this what is this Zero No Tuscany or something like that. The Harry Potter knockoff that did really well. But you still had a lot of like Japanese shows, right? Um, and like the Japanese like archetypes, like harems and all that, were really popular. But you started seeing like definitely an expansion into like American themes, and then you get into the 2010s, and then you start getting like Demon Slayer, uh, uh, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, uh, especially My Hero Academia and Attack on Titan, very Western themes, like very Western. Uh, Steins Gate, but it's very modern Japan. Let me see what else we got. We got Ooh, I knew that I could feel that coming, and I was just like having a brain fart. Yeah, but then you started seeing like a lot of like I don't know. I feel like sports anime sort of hasn't been so big in like the last 20 years as well. Like there was a lot more sports anime in like the 70s and 80s, and I feel like there's still a lot of sports anime, but I don't feel like it's nowhere near what it used to be. But yeah, you see a lot of like westernization in the 2010s, and then in the 2020s, where we're at now, I think we see a really big shift with solo leveling being like a big example where you're starting to see manhwas get produced, and you're also starting to see American people like Americans writing for anime and then having anime. It's just a weird thing. I feel like Japan sort of started doing this thing in the 2010s where they like, oh, what if we get like some, American writers to write our anime, and then it's just not really working out so well. But like the Korean manhwa becoming, getting animated in Japan and becoming anime is a really big thing. I think manhwa and manhwa are really really exploding in popularity. I think manhwa is definitely the future. You see like the rise of like webtoon as a format, and I feel like you're starting to see like manga. That one of the things like that people tell me a lot is that anime is usually most anime is there to sell the light novel, right? In Japan, Japan loves their light novels. Japan also loves their manga. So manga is made to advertise for the light novel, but cheaply, and then manga is made to advertise for the light novel, but cheaply, and then anime is made to advertise both the manga and the light novel, on a larger scale. And that's usually like what you see is you see the light novel come out first, and then you see a manga come out with like some chapters, and then you see the anime come out, and the anime like will usually explode its popularity, and then the manga will make a bunch more chapters, and then the light novel will usually have like 47 books. And they want you to buy the light novel because the light novel is way cheaper to produce. Because when you think about it, a light novel is written by like maybe like one guy and an editor, writing like 50 novels, and then you have the manga. The manga is, you have an artist, you have probably like you might have a couple of assistants, you'll have an editor, you have a publication, and all that. Like all that, the money's getting divided, right? So that's just advertisement for that light novel, which is so cheap to make. So there's a huge profit margin for the creators and the publishers for light novels. And then the anime, there's like a bajillion people involved, but there's a lot like. But I also feel like there's a lot of higher revenue. There's a lot of stakes for anime. And anime, like this is a thing in like the early 2010s and 2000s. A lot of the anime produced then, and even in the 90s, they were producing based off of like VHS sales and DVD sales, and they could offset and even Blu-ray sales for a while. They could offset the cost of their production by offering pre-orders, and usually people would want that because they would rush the show for production for TV, and then the show on TV would look a little wonky, and then they'd go back and reanimate it, and then by the time it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray, it would have a lot of those issues fixed, and it would look spectacular. But I think you see a lot of digitalization with anime nowadays, especially here in the 2000s. Like a lot of these shows wouldn't be made without anime, without After Effects and Premiere. We're not editing on film. A lot of people are just drawing straight in the computer, and you see a lot of like the quality has definitely gone up. Like the higher, okay. So this is a thing where it's like, I strongly believe that in the 80s anime peaked, right? Animation quality in anime peaked in the 80s, and there was a slow downslide in the 90s and early 2000s, where uh, anime sort of just got like. I'm not saying that the quality, the production. How do I describe this? As the means of production gets easier and easier to make, the actual attention to detail and like quality of the product goes down. And you can sort of see this in video games as well, where it's like you look at games that were made in like the early 2000s, and it's like you can shoot a tree branch off of a tree, and then you can like step on that tree branch, and or you can like light bushes on fire, and then you go to like a new version of that game that came out like last year. It's like you can't light the bush on fire, and the fire doesn't interact, and you can't shoot tree branches because back then they had to do all of that manually, and so people were like, I need to make this to be the most impressive thing I've ever done. Nowadays, a lot of the systems that we have with technology really limit us to what we can do, and we're just relying heavily on the machinery to get things done faster and quicker. And I'm not saying that we don't have like every generation there are going to be shows that look phenomenal and they're amazingly animated, but at the same time, the majority of shows are like the quality is sort of going to dip down, and I feel like we saw that a little bit this year, where you had like for instance, we had Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling looks phenomenal, right? But from my understanding, the company that made Solo Leveling basically uh, had to do so many animation retakes and put so much effort into the animation that they went negative in how much they were spending on the money, like on this show. Like it just cost them too much. And then the same thing with like what's that show? The beginning after the end. That show looks like hot garbage. I love that manhwa, and I was really expecting that to be an amazing manhwa because it has so many chapters, and apparently people really love the light novel for that one too, and yeah, just hot garbage of an animation. I was so disappointed, and you see a lot of that with like a lot of animation where the manga does really well, the light novels do really well, and then the anime just does like it's just hot garbage. Like Kingdom has if you guys have ever read Kingdom, it looks amazing. Like the manga looks amazing, but then the anime was a hot garbage for kids, and it was just like, why would you take something that's like Game of Thrones and make it for kids? I didn't understand. But yeah, that's sort of like where you see that going in. I think the next big step for anime at the moment, like what we're going to see a lot of, especially towards the later of the 2020s and then going into the 2030s, is we're going to see a lot of AI animation. And I know a lot of people are probably not going to be on board with this, but that's just sort of where the future is going. Uh, at the moment, I can, let's look up. That's not what I wanted. Here we go. So in 2024, AI animation really started taking off, and this is not the article I want. Is this no? That's not the article I want. I want. I'm trying to find the article. I should probably prep this. Okay, so here we go. So in there's this group called Cole Group in Singapore, and they're actually going through with producing AI animation. I've actually seen a lot of AI anime, and they call it AI assisted light anime titles. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking like manhwa, or they're taking manhwa from Asia, which are already getting produced in mass numbers, and there's hundreds and hundreds of stories out there, and they're just animating them with AI animation, and then maybe animating like a few shots here and there. But they're producing these to be shows, right? And so if you've read a manhwa, there's probably an AI animated version out there on some app out there that you don't know about yet. And there's so many of these coming up, and there's a reason for this, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this article here talks about how they're making 24 AI assist light anime titles. 24. So this was in December of 2024, so just 8 months ago. I guarantee you some of these are already out and you don't even know it yet. But basically, why this is such a big thing is, if you guys don't know, because I work sort of like in an entertainment space. As someone who's done a lot, like, being in LA, you work in a lot of entertainment stuff, and a lot of the entertainment jobs have sort of shifted from doing like traditional films and TV to working for apps, and a lot of these apps are doing vertical video because they want to be, first of all, they want to be like TikTok, right? So TikTok has like that vertical, so they want to be like the anime version of TikTok. And so what's an easy way to do that is with manhwa. So manhwa is already made to be read on a phone. So instead of animating it for like a live screen, like a widescreen like Solo Leveling, they're just using AI to animate it for a vertical. And this is so very popular. This is already hitting Asia very very heavy, and China especially, but we're going to start seeing a lot of that in like the next coming couple years. We're just going to start seeing a lot of AI, and I know people are going to be like, AI slop, AI slop. I've seen some AI tools out there that are very very impressive. I think the upper limits of AI animation is really really impressive, and it's kind of hard because you guys probably don't even understand like how advanced this stuff can get, and it's gonna be crazy. I don't know, but also at this point, so once you get to the AI level of like animation in the next couple years, I think it's really going to peak around 2030. You're still going to have a lot of people animating, but you're going to use AI animation to do like a lot of like the talking heads. So there's not going to be anyone who's needed to just like animate lip sync, just talking there. AI will probably take over all lip sync and all boring shit, and then you're just going to have actual animators doing like the cool 360 turns and all the impressive stuff that you need to really stand model. And I'm sure AI will probably be able to catch up and do that eventually, but who knows? Uh, I do think like having animators is going to be considered a premium in the future, and AI animation is just going to be the norm. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. It's just what it's going to be, my dudes. I'm sorry. And then by 2030, I don't know. 2030, 10 years from now, I don't know. Like honestly, if you had asked me what I was going to be doing 10 years from now, 10 years ago, I would have said I'm going to be an animator. I'm going to be working for Cartoon Network, and I'm not working for Cartoon Network, and I stopped working for Cartoon Network 10 years ago. So yeah, it's just kind of what it like where we're at, right? Like the company, like the whole market can constantly change. We've seen that with like how the pandemic happened, and it changed up a lot of entertainment. When the pandemic happened, like anime really took a huge skyrocket, but so did animation in general. But now, a couple years later, you're starting to see animation as having a reel back, and anime is starting to get like pulled forward because that's where all the money's coming in from, and it's easier and cheaper. And yeah, it's just kind of a weird situation. But my prediction, yeah, that's my prediction. We're gonna see a lot of anime in the next 10 years. In fact, I think anime will be the norm, and I think in the next 5 years we're gonna have options where it's like here's an AI generated story and you can watch it, and it's not even gonna say AI generated. Here's your story. What you put in a prompt. I want a sci-fi adventure about an elf who goes to the moon and flies battleships, and then it's just gonna generate me a series on the fly, and then I'm going to be able to say I think the character should be younger or older, and then boom, it does it. And I think this is going to be a really big shift. I also think that we're going to see a fall off because of how AI is going to affect narrative entertainment. This is a thing I saw I saw a TikTok talking about this where a person was like talking to their younger sibling or something, and they're like, or their child or something. I don't remember the exact context, but then the child, the younger person was just like, "Oh, I don't watch narrative entertainment," and or yeah, narrative entertain like, and like what that means is uh they don't watch something that has like a story, so there's no beginning, middle, and end. They're just watching like live streamers, right? And I think live streamers are also a big thing that's like are blowing up at the same time. I think anime will still be popular. I think reality TV show is getting even more popular. Anime, reality TV show, and live streaming, there's eventually going to become like a point where we're just going to get an anime, we're just going to have a reality TV show that's AI, that's, mark my words, there is going to be a show that is a reality TV show that is live on Twitch, but they're using AI filters to turn everyone into anime, and I guarantee you it's going to be a massive hit. That is my future prediction right there. I don't know if it's going to be in the next 5 years or 10 years, but it's coming. That's the show I'm envisioning it in my brain right now. Yeah, and let's see. How do I think? I'm not going to touch on cosplayers. I think cosplayers. I think cosplay is going to get even more popular. I think 3D printing has already done so much for cosplayers, but I think 3D printing is going to get cheaper, and more people are just going to, make crazy cosplays, and they're going to get cheaper and cheaper, and it's just going to be the evolution. But yeah, that's where I see anime in 10 years from now. I think stylistically, I don't know where we're going to be style wise. I think every 10 years there's a big shift in style based on production techniques and like what's popular, and I'd really love to see like something crazy. I'd love to see some abstract animation. I'd love to see just something that's crazy and bizarre and different become popular. I mean, K-pop Demon Hunters looks phenomenal. It's very loosey goosey slapstick animation quality, but very serious at times, and I think that's a really good example of what 3D animation could do. And I think that's a future of some animation as well. But that's where I'm going to leave it today, guys. Let me know what your predictions are down in the comments below. This video went on kind of long, and this was just a spur of the moment. I literally just got a video. I was watching like YouTube, and it was like Mr. V's prediction for YouTube in 10 years, and he's like, "I'm going to be a millionaire." I don't think I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 years, guys. But be sure to like and subscribe, and or yeah, he didn't say he's gonna be a millionaire. He's gonna be famous. I don't know if I'm gonna be famous in 10 years. I'm not. If you had asked me 10 years ago if I was gonna be famous, I would have probably said no. But yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave it. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.